Hey guys, welcome to the Markcast. Reed here. Here we are back again. Another CFL season here, week 1 in the books here. It's Monday afternoon here, 4 o'clock Pacific. Hussey is getting home from work. We are standing by for him. He'll be joining in a few moments. So why don't you go ahead and give me some comments, things we can run through while we wait for Hussey. I have some announcements to make as well. We can look through the week ahead, kind of do some recappy stuff. I have thoughts for all 4 games. Really excited to talk about that. And then we will get Jason on here as soon as he can. I think we had dog issues, chewing on microphone cables or something. We'll get Jason on, but give me your thoughts. What did you think of the week? Surprises, winners, losers here. BC Lions, what the heck is going on? We will talk about that for sure. Montreal Alouettes, that looks like the best team in the sport right now. Very excited for that. As we get everyone on here, thanks so much for joining. CFL recap today, week 1. Like I said, recap. Jason Hussey tomorrow, same time. John Lewis Sports will be joining. Very, very crazy UFL playoffs. Crazy. I'm not expected here. St. Louis Battlehawk fans revolting. We're going to sit on our season tickets. We're not going to the playoff game. Really wild there. John Lewis has some bad takes to amend for. We will get to all of that. And then no regular Friday episode this week. We will take that off. We will be live on Sunday for the UFL championship game. We will be there. The Professor Andrew Murray will be there. He's on vacation right now in Mexico. Maybe he's watching this from the beach. I know he was reading Paul Woods' book about the Argonauts here yesterday in between the UFL playoff game and the CFL game. Maybe the professor is checking in. And then, but we will be there live on Sunday with Professor Andrew Murray, Anthony Miller. I think Pat Ruffino is going to call in, Mike Mitchell, all of that. So lots of UFL stuff, talking CFL today. Yes, foosball fan. Battlehawks went from they've really become the heels of the league here at this point. The Battlehawk fans are like, well, we don't need to support this league. Like our attendance has been taken for granted all season. I'm really excited to get to all of that with John. Like and subscribe here. We just crossed 3,500 subscribers. If you're new to the mix, we gave 2 free tickets to the UFL championship game. We're going to give away some season tickets next year. If you are feeling out of the loop because you are a Canadian listener or you do not watch the UFL, don't worry. We always tend to get, and I can collect some more really nice jerseys from Royal Retros we can give away. I think we got a Doug Flutie one before. I know we've had a couple different CFL ones. We can get some of those vintage from Royal Retros. So if you feel like, well, Reed, I don't care about the the UFL season tickets or championship tickets, all that, we will hook you up. So like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you a penny. It's you can join the channel, 99 cents, gives you a fun little seal. You can be like, foosball fan here, get a fun little emoticon and next to your name, but we will do all of that. But yeah, join the channel, 99 cents a month, or else, like and subscribe, share the video, give it a thumbs up. Doesn't cost a penny. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Tim Capper checking in here. I will say, and we did our pregame show ahead of the kickoff game. I thought it would be a coin flip, a really, really, I guess not surprised with how well the Alouettes looked, but I guess just surprised with how poor the Blue Bombers looked. Really wasn't close. I know we had Chipgate, we had the chip dilemma. We lived through all that. USFL fans know all about the weight of the chip and the ball. They released a statement. I think it was like Friday in between. So I think some of the games got to use the non-chipped kicking balls for the special teams plays. Some didn't. I know Sergio Castillo, friend of the program, had complaints about that for the Blue Bombers game. I think it was the Blue Bombers ball spotter said no, that wasn't the case, that they had the chip ball, that they were keeping track of all that. Curious about all of that. We did get a statement about that came out, like I said, I think Friday. So I guess if you're the Blue Bombers, it's just, cry foul at this point. I don't think it would have made that big of a difference to the final score if we look at that. But I did have that here. How can we present that on here? Really just interesting because it just is someone that's kind of lived through all of this. So let's get rid of Tim's stuff here. As we live through all this with the USFL, really just surprised that through all the preseason and using the microchip balls and all of that, that they didn't, I guess, foresee that being an issue. Look around. I know that was a pretty public thing with the USFL. They had the chip balls. I had very many friends that were special teams players with the USFL back 2 seasons ago that complained about the chips and the balls. I saw many photos of bruised feet, really bloodied feet, toes, kind of from kicking the ball with the chip and the complaints with all that. So just really surprised. But obviously the CFL coming out, Ambrosi here with the statement kind of figuring all of that out. But, if you're the Blue Bombers, if you're Sergio Castillo, I think you have a valid complaint there. I wouldn't necessarily put an asterisk next to the game against the Alouettes. I don't know if it would have made that big of a difference, but certainly glad to see. But I don't know. I really thought we would have seen that ahead of time. But hey, welcome to the CFL. Using we got the True Line, True View, whatever that the UFL has now with ball spotting, and it's 0.5 inches or whatever to the first down marker. So good to see that, but. Really interesting. A little bit of controversy here coming out of week 1, but it is what it is here. Jenna's checking in. Let's go Red Blacks. Really curious to see what the Red Blacks look like this weekend. They were obviously on their bye coming in. They will be playing on Thursday here, opening up Winnipeg at the Red Blacks. Not always the best home record the Ottawa Red Blacks have, so we'll be curious for that. And obviously Winnipeg looking in here to avenge what I would say is a pretty embarrassing loss. I'm curious in the chat if anyone has any thoughts about the Blue Bombers. I thought they came out really slow. I thought Caleros, there was all this talk. Okay, did they play enough players in the preseason? Did they not? Okay, were they saving too much? And I know it's a marathon and I know it's just one game, but it's something to keep in mind. A slow start. I think Caleros always kind of starts slow, so I don't know if I would get that wound up about it, but certainly exciting here. I'm an Alouettes fan. I don't want to jump on Tim and Cliffy's bandwagon too much, but if we have to have a team of the East, I'll take the Montreal Alouettes for that. Really, really excited for them, and like I said, really just excited for Cody and all the guys there. The Alouettes have always been really great media wise, getting players on the program. So I certainly appreciate that, and it just makes it really easy to cheer for a team like that. I think the UFL would behoove much more to do that and start to kind of get players more out if they're not going to be in the communities, doing a lot more remote interviews and things. I think it helps the players, or the fans get to know the players and kind of put their name out there and their stories and all of that. Al here says, I think it's just kickers crying over a 13-gram chip. The laces would affect the fly of the bar. I'll just say, from having lived real time through the USFL season where they had the chipped balls, it very much is an issue. I did see photos and players going to the doctor and having that looked at, and there was a lot of I'm very much afraid of getting cut from the USFL, so I don't want to say too much during the season. That I think was very prevalent during that, but I do know, just having seen firsthand photos, spoken to players firsthand, that it very much was an issue with the USFL. So I get it, and I get that it certainly didn't seem to affect the Alouettes kicker, and then the math of, okay, what did it affect the game the next day? Were they able to pull the balls? Because that would have been the Calgary game, and Rene looked really good. I think he was 5 for 5, whatever, with the field goals. Did that affect all of that? We don't know, but no, I think it's a valid issue. I think it's a valid issue. Hussey's getting on here. We'll get him on here. One more comment while he gets logged in. Benjamin, Cameron Dukes looked good. Cameron Dukes looked phenomenal. Chad Kelly, who I have to say here. Let's bring in Jason. Jason, I got a lot of thoughts about all this. As he's chugging this Dr. Pepper, whatever here. Jason, did you get your room all cleaned up from the dog attack?
Kind of, but the show must go on.
Well, I appreciate it, Jason. Really, really exciting here, kind of setting the stage for all this today. Jason and I will do our best, week by week on here, do our CFL recaps. Summer gets really busy for me. I know Jason's busy with work stuff as well. We will do our best. We'll try to get some special guests. I think maybe we could coordinate with an Anthony Miller at some point for It's Illustrated. I know Mike Mitchell is always, Jones in to hop on all these. So we'll figure all that out. I prefer the later time slots on Monday. I know you can get home from work, but sometimes, like, I work a lot of weekends. I worked all day Saturday with the dance performance that I had to film, but I was able to catch up all day today. So it almost works out better for me than like the 8 a.m. start, where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do my best here to catch up. So I've watched all the highlights. I've watched all the recaps. I'm fully invested in this, ready to go. Jason, what do you think of week 1? 4 really good games as far as I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that the thing that stood out for me in comparison to the recent years in particular is the quarterback play. I thought that pretty much every quarterback, except for maybe Zach Collaros, played pretty decently, I thought. And I think that's a great sign for this 2024 CFL season.
Yeah, I know. There was a lot of talk, obviously, with Chad Kelly and all of that. Like Cameron Dukes is running around the field like crazy. I saw that. I want to know what the hell happened to our BC, my BC Lions and everything. We also have news here. I just before where did I got it saved here somewhere? It's going to be the last one I opened. I want to get your thoughts, kind of breaking news before we get into all this. Your Ticats here signing Tua's brother here, Tualaya Tagovailoa. What do you think about this? You got Bo, or I mean, what's going on here? What's the strategy?
Well, I think that, anytime, a rookie comes up to the CFL at quarterback, that usually you're never really expecting them to play year one. I think that the idea is to let them learn the game. And unless you're put into like a Taylor Powell situation last year, you don't want them to play. So I think like I'm tempering my expectations for it. Obviously, I'm excited. Obviously he has the big name from his brother playing in the NFL, but I think that at the end of the day, he's going to have to wait his turn here in Hamilton, and I think if he can just establish himself in year one, being humble coming into the league, I think that's the biggest thing that some of these bigger name players face when they come up to the CFL is that they're not really prepared for the challenge. And I think that the league can really humble you if you're not prepared like that. So I think that's something I'm looking forward to. And I think, my expectations aren't very high, like I said.
Yeah, I think it's both, right? I think it's the player being unknowing, coming up to the league, and I also think like I think it was Naylor like 2 years ago. We were talking when the USFL was getting off, and he's like, it's a 3 to 4 year learning process to be a part of the league. And you're like, okay, like I get it, but then I also think like, weren't we doing off-season stuff with like quarterback clinics to try to get these players that like, was that a fever dream? Like, are we, like I think it's okay to not have it be. I think quarterback is the hardest thing in the world anyway, and quarterback in the CFL. Like, let's not like this BDE of like our league is so much harder. I think like let's get some of this going to get these players up here because, like you said, all these leagues thrive off quarterback play, but especially the CFL and getting the ball down the field. I think it would behoove to not have it be like we got to go through a 4-year training camp to kind of get to the point.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just the scarcity of starting spots, right? You only have 9 of them in the league, and you look at the guys that are in there. Most of these guys have waited like a long time before they even got a chance to be starters in this league. Guys like Trevor Harris, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, Cody Fajardo were backups for years in the CFL before they got a chance to start. So, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. But I don't think I'm with you that I don't think it should take that long for guys to get a shot. I think that the Chad Kelly model, not to use him in a positive sense, but the fact that he sat on the bench for 1 year and then was able to be a starter in year 2, I think that's a more realistic model going forward. And I think the league just wants you to, they want you to believe that, that you're in it for the long run and not just thinking that you're going to take the league by storm in year 1. So.
Yeah, I think it's and as someone that's gone through this quite personally, like with Paul and I getting involved in all this, yeah, I do think there's this like CFL on both sides of like this is our thing, and don't be coming in here thinking like there was that Johnny Manziel stuff. Was it last week or the week before? He's like, well, the CFL used me, and I'm like, I think the CFL probably would have been fine. Like, I think there was definitely a mutually beneficial at that point of like Johnny Manziel. Okay, let me go up here and kind of try to jumpstart all of this, and also the CFL. God forbid, hey, like this would be a good signing to do. Like, I do think both, like, I think it was mutually beneficial to both. I don't think it was the CFL leeching off of Johnny Manziel 100%.
Yeah, every league uses its players. I mean, that's really the only thing. Like, I think, I don't really get what he was saying there. I mean, that was just a crazy time. It's amazing how many Johnny Manziel jerseys you still see at Tiger Cats games, how many years later. A lot of people fell for the hype. And this is what I'm talking about with these big name players coming up here. They don't necessarily always work out. Like Johnny Manziel's, like at least he was on the roster. He actually made the roster because there's a lot of guys that came up here and they don't even make it through their first training camp in the league.
Yeah, Chris here, Johnny Manziel clown. We got Mike here, our usual UFL commentator. Great to see McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Wondering where he went. We will talk about McLeod with the Elks. Man, they almost had that. We will get to all of that. Mod here, I love the CFL. CFL doesn't groom their quarterbacks very well. I would agree with that. Like I said, I think it's like we want to like it's more like cut through iron kind of philosophy, if that makes sense. Like back in the medieval, like, well, you gotta, you sharpen through iron, right? We're gonna get you through all of this. I don't know if Maj, like if you're a if you're a new viewer on here, like I said, make sure you subscribe. We'll be live here every week, and then we will do, as always, our big Grey Cup show this year in Vancouver. I hope Hussey's coming out, or else we'll get him remote. But Hussey be there. Like we're gonna have a big West Coast contingent. I think Pat Ruffino wants to be there. I know Andy wants to be there. Obviously, my wife's going to be there. Well, it's going to be a big shebang. So anyway, subscribe. Be a part of all of that. And just join the family. It makes me feel really good. And it's a lot of work here to do these every week, and I certainly appreciate Jason doing this. The same that Andy has done with all the UFL stuff. Like it's really hard to. Like I just kind of watch the games and come on and start the thing. Like Jason has to have really smart things to say. So I appreciate all of that. Jason, let's get into, so we did our pregame show, and I will give credit to, Cliffy of the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast. We did our hot takes, and I don't know if you Canadians necessarily know what like a hot take is. Like, I think you guys are all too nice. Like, I think the Ticats are going to look really good this season. Like, hot takes is like Chad Kelly's going to, flame out and be out, whatever. Like, but Cliffy said, hey, keep an eye out for Tyson Philpott. And holy God, at least in this first game, Tyson Philpott looked really good. Like I said, check out Tim and Cliffy over at the Alouettes Fight Deck podcast, and full credit for that. The Alouettes looked phenomenal in this game, right?
Yeah, they look great. They looked like a Grey Cup champion, I think that they're a team that, is very complimentary on both sides of the ball. I think the big question I had for their offense coming into the year was Austin Mack going on to the NFL. I think that they really needed someone to step up in that receiving core, and that very well may be Tyson Philpott.
Yeah, Tyson Philpott looks great here. Obviously, 2 TDs, ton of targets here, 10 of 11 on that. Was really cool. The symmetry where they're like, the first touchdown of the season was the last touchdown of the season. And with Cody and him and connecting, and obviously we were there in Hamilton, and that was a huge shebang. Yeah, I don't know. I think people were worried if that was a fluke last year. Can Montreal do it again? And I know, and new listeners and most of the viewers here probably watch the CFL more than I have, but it is a marathon. It's not, you can't read too much into week one, but Alouettes look like the real deal here. And this was a really good team they played. And I want to get to the Blue Bombers kind of faults here, but how impressed, I guess, just for you that they were able to run it back out here. Cause I do think there was a lot of going into the offseason, we were underestimated and we had the thing on our shoulders and all that, but then to come out and look just as good as they did at the end of last season.
Well, I think when you look back to the recaps that we did last year, what was the thing that we always said about the Alouettes? They were 11-0 against all the bad teams in the league and 0-7 against all the good teams in the league. And obviously that changed in the playoffs, but this is more impressive of a win than they had all of regular season last year. And I'm ready to really, crown them as the best team in the CFL right now because of this performance. They really showed out on both sides of the ball. Like I said, that defense looked just as good as they did at the end of last year. And I think a big part of that is keeping a lot of those players intact. And I think you're also starting to see a little more creativeness from the offense for the Alouettes. I think, Jason Moss and Cody Fajardo in year 2, they're willing to take a little more deep shots down the field. And I think you saw that in this game with that flea flicker touchdown to Tyson Philpott late.
Well, and that was the thing that I thought Cody looked phenomenal. I know he had the one pick, it was kind of went through the guy's, it's one of those, it went through the hands and the guy got it. I know it's an interception, but it's one of those, it wasn't he threw it in the open coverage or whatever. But I thought he looked great. Yeah, that flea flicker, because we had done the show. I kind of posted everything. I brought my laptop inside. We were watching it, having dinner, and I'm I just see Cody just absolutely go. That was a pretty impressive throw, I thought, from Cody on that. I thought he looked great, and I saw him going into the stands after the game and kind of celebrating and all that. I mean, for them to come into, what is it now, Princess Automotive Stadium or whatever? Yeah. I'm going to always call it IG Field because that's all I know it as. But, Princess Automotive, to go in there, and I know it's not like the barren tundra of November or whatever, but to go in there and win, I think is pretty impressive. And to shut the Blue Bomber fans up, I think is pretty remarkable.
Well, weren't they like 37-3 in the last like 4 years or something like that at home? Like really, really impressive record. So I think the Alouettes actually have 2 of those wins now. Because I think a couple of years ago the Blue Bombers were 9-0 going into that game when they played the Alouettes, and then they upset them in overtime. So yeah, it was a really impressive game this week from the Alouettes, and I think that it can only get better going forward for them.
Yeah, Andy. I knew Andy was checking in here at the beach. Andy's in Mexico with this girl. Shout out Clivy, flight that call. Big year for Tyson Philpott off to a tremendous start. I knew that. I knew Andy. Andy can't escape from the CFL talk here. In terms of, I like what you said about the creativity, letting Cody maybe have a little bit more freedom out there. I thought he scrambled really well. I want to talk about that later when we get to Vernon Adams and kind of him getting beat up. But it felt like Cody kind of knew when to run, was able to, felt aware enough and be able to mobile enough in that way. Like, I just think Cody's looked phenomenal since, I know he kind of had that dip last year being hurt. And then I think he was on the show and he was coming back from injury and then really was lights out the rest of the season. And really great for that. I think Cody, like Vernon, kind of feeds off the confidence a little bit, right? Like if I'm doing well, like Vernon, as we saw last year with the Argonauts, like, falls apart. I think if like it gets a little too heavy on him, I think Cody's a little bit emotional like that as well. But, I like, as long as you can protect him and give him the weapons, I just think Cody looks phenomenal. I couldn't be happier for the man.
Yeah, completely agree.
In terms of the in terms of the Blue Bombers here, Zach had the interception, the right end zone interception. They're like, what they call it, it's like, oh, save some points for the. I'm like, that's a big deal here. Save the touchdown. On that, there was a lot made like. He played a little bit of preseason, but the guys didn't. Or there were not all the offense was out there. What do you make of that? And didn't Zach kind of start slow last season as well?
I'm trying to think how he started last year. I mean, yeah, I would have to look back at that, but yeah, no, I think that he looked extremely off in this game. I thought his accuracy was terrible. He had very many chances to hit his receivers for big plays, and he just certainly just did not take advantage of those opportunities. And I think we'll talk about this as well, but Kenny Lawler's injury going forward, that's going to be huge for this team. I don't think this team has as big of a margin of error that they've had in years past because their defense is not as good. Their offensive line looked a lot weaker in this game. I think a lot of that has to do with Jamarcus Hardrick being gone to Saskatchewan now. So I think there's some problem signs here for the Blue Bombers. But again, it's just 1 week, so we don't want to overreact.
We saw Strevler come in. He had a couple of runs. He had the one where there was the ankle twist from the defense. That's like him. He was really upset about that. How did Strevler look? I mean, just kind of same as always. We're not going to expect too much from him. Just kind of the short yardage guy.
Yeah, I don't think this is a guy that even when he was starting in the CFL before, he was never really, a bona fide number one starting quarterback. So I don't think this is a guy that you can really expect to, take the reins for more than a handful of weeks or so if Claris goes down to have any kind of success. So I think this is kind of the perfect role for him in the CFL.
We still have Drew. What's his face? The backup last year. Has he moved on now? The Drew. The Drew Brown. Is it Drew Brown?
Drew Brown. Yeah, he's with Ottawa. He's going to be their starting quarterback starting this week against the Blue Bombers.
Okay, without Mazzoli. So I'm coming off of UFL coverage here. So is Mazzoli still? What's his timetable?
I believe Mazzoli is in training camp. I haven't been following the Red Blacks camp too closely, but I do know that Drew Brown is the starting quarterback for the opening of the season, and Dustin Crum is still there. So you got quite the crowded quarterback room there in Ottawa.
And just forgive me, people coming off of UFL coverage for the last 2 weeks, getting my feet wet again. CFL who are working through all this. I liked when I had Ted Wyman on, and shout out Ted Wyman, who is like undergoing chemotherapy, really scary. He was on, didn't know what was going on, got diagnosed. Hopefully he's a recovery. He's like, I don't even know how you remember like what you're talking about today. I'm like, well, at least I appreciate that, Ted. At least Ted sympathizes with all that stuff. Yeah, Maji here has with Lawler being out. We saw the missed catch in the end zone kind of came down flat on his back with that, presumably that or one of the other, like, You think that's a major issue here? I mean, obviously you saw Dalton Show and the Woltarski. Dembski, I mean, we have a lot of weapons there, but you think he's that big of a miss there?
Well, I think Kenny Lawler, when he's playing his best, he's arguably still the best receiver in this league. I think for the last, especially if you look at the sample size of the last 3 years, I think that he's right up there in terms of being, at least a top 5 receiver in this league. So anytime you miss that, and his field stretching ability, because he's a guy that can affect you at all levels of the defense. He can, create big plays for you, but also big catches over the middle. So I think that he is a really important aspect of this Blue Bombers offense. And obviously they got other guys like Schoen and Oliveira, but I think a big part of that offense is just what they have in Kenny Lawler.
In terms of Oliveira here, a lot was made, and right, was it? I know it was BC was in the mix, and was it Hamilton? I can't remember. There was another team in the mix in the East for Oliveira. He's back here, 11 carries for 38 yards. It didn't do a lot. Is that more him falling off? Is that just the Alouettes D, which I thought looked really good and kind of like almost a bend don't break. Like they got in field goal position. I want to talk about your thoughts on the chip ball. I talked about that off the top, but got him. But like they wouldn't let them hit the touch, hit the end zone, if that makes sense. I thought the Alouettes. But what did you make of Oliveira's performance?
Well, it was certainly underwhelming from a guy that a lot of people thought was the MOP last season, but I think it's far too early to just judge a running back specifically on one game because, like you said, they're going up against a great Montreal Alouettes defense. And the fact that they were able to get up on the Alouettes on the Blue Bombers early, it really took out the running game a lot of the time from the factoring into the game.
Yeah, I was surprised here. We'll touch it and move on to the other games here. It just really wasn't even close. Like, they got a little bit of points here at the end. But just really surprised. I thought it would be a little bit more 50-50 on that. What's your thoughts on the chip ball? Because Sergio talked about that. I talked, we read the statement and the USFL stuff. And I know they switched it then. So, like, was it switched by the Calgary game in terms of Paredes not having to deal with it? So, really weird that then, to me, like, I would keep all week 1 the same and then switch. It seems really weird to me to switch the rule between games 1 and 2. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I thought that was a very it was a needed switch, I think, from the CFL, given that basically all kickers around the league were complaining about this. But it was little unanimous. But I think that I'll defend the league from their perspective of the fact that we are in an age of wanting to acquire all kinds of data, from tracking plays and everything like that. We're in a very analytical age. And I think it is useful to get numbers from, any aspect of the league. But I think when it affects the ball that much, maybe Castillo is just using it as an excuse, but I really don't think so. I think that the chip ball can play a factor, even though it's just, I don't even know how. It's very light. It's very small percentage of the ball, but I think at the end of the day, it definitely can throw an athlete off, and I think that's a big part when you're putting in these trackers, these sensors into the ball. I think that you have to make sure it's okay with the athletes that are using it and doesn't affect them more than it normally would.
It's weird because the USFL used it more as like a first down marker, right? And now that's what they use. Like there's no even chain gang anymore. Where the CFL, as far as I pay attention, is still using that, and like you said, using it more for the analytics. But I saw photos of players with very, very damaged and bruised feet from kicking those balls last year. Or 2 years ago. So I would trust them. And like you said, I think special teams players are players that have habit anyway, and they're very used to all of that stuff, and the laces and the snap and all that. But it's a large amount of force going into the bladder of a football kind of sailing. And I think when there's a immovable hard object in there of any size, I think it's, like I said, I talked and saw, like, it was, if I showed the photo, I have the photo, like if I showed the photos on here, it'd be like, ew, that's kind of gross. So it didn't seem to affect the Alouettes kickers at all, but obviously Sergio was kicking from a further distance, I think, as well. I think the Alouettes, the ones that I saw at least, were closer on. Anything else from the Alouettes, Blue Bombers, before we move on?
Well, I wanted to point out one specific moment earlier in this game. Derek Wigan, who's a longtime Calgary Stampeder, who surprisingly left the team this offseason, signed with the Alouettes. He had a sack early in this game, and TSN, wasn't very careful with the mic placement on the sideline, and kind of picked up an F-bomb there.
I heard
and
that, yeah.
He said they didn't effing want me. So, I thought that was great for him. Great moment for him. And he's a longtime veteran in this league. I think he's played about 10 years, a Canadian guy, and, was a longtime starter for the Stamps. So, it's always good to see players have that moment.
I want to shout out as well, and I'm glad that I remembered to look at this before we got to. I want to shout out James Letcher Jr. here, friend of the show. A couple big, nothing crazy, but a couple of big punt returns. It really has, ever since he came on the program last year. If you are a quarterback, avoid this show like the plague. Ben Holmes, Grey Cup champion after a no show in the show. McLeod Bethel Thompson, they were undefeated until he was on the show with the USFL. But if you are a special teams player, come on the program here. James Letcher is really really phenomenal, I think, in terms of the Alouettes for their return game here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth mentioning that they had Chandler Worthy, who was an outstanding return man, and they decided to keep Letcher over him. So,
all right, let's get on here to the Bows. This is the Bows' big homecoming in Calgary here. Calgary, Mayor looked really good. Like I said, I caught up on the highlights today with this. I thought Bo looked fine as well. James Butler was looking good for the Calgary side. Dedrick Mills really, really having a day, all across the field. What was your takeaway with this one?
Well, I thought both quarterbacks played very well, actually. I thought that this was probably the best I've seen from him since he's come to Hamilton. One thing that stood out for me with him is that he was moving around very well. I thought he was using his feet, which is something you definitely don't see regularly with Bo Levi Mitchell. So that's a promising sign for the Ticats. And I think that, if the Ticats receivers could catch the damn ball, I think they had at least five drops in this game, and including a huge drop that would have been a touchdown to Tim White. That was a beautiful throw. So, Bo Levi Mitchell would have easily been over 350 passing yards if the Ticats receivers could catch the ball that game. And I think, it's an encouraging performance for him. And then I think that, Tim White had a very poor game. Like I said, the drop, but he also had a couple of other drops as well. He had a bunch of targets, but he just wasn't able to come down with a lot of them. And I think that's a guy that they really need to count on going forward, because, this is a guy that led the league in receiving last year. And then,
sorry. I was just going to say, Tim White's normally like automatic. So that's just really, surprising. Sorry, I just wanted to interject that.
No, that's okay. And I would actually say he's not automatic, because I think he's just a very hot and cold player. Okay, he goes through these very cold stretches, but then he can get hot and become the best receiver in the league for a handful of weeks. And we saw that in the playoffs last year against Montreal, held to 0 catches.
James Butler here, 119 yards, looked really good. In terms too of the Bo Levi's of it all, like you said, really kind of seeking contact. A couple really like hard runs. Felt like he really still is very invested in all of this. And I think there was a lot of like, okay, he came in and didn't he restructure his contract now to stay another year? And, he was in the booth kind of watching the game, because there could be a lot of like, I think he could just kind of sail off or mail it in or do it. Bo seems like I am still very much want to prove that and like you said, even taking long shots down the field, we didn't see necessarily all that arm strength last season as well.
Yeah, you can't question his Bo Levi Mitchell's dedication to the game. And I think, he clearly loves this league and wants to be a part of it long term, even beyond his playing career, I think. And I think that, he says, with his effort in this game, like you said, I think it shows that he's not done playing. He wants to really give it his all for at least this last year here in Hamilton. And I think that we really saw that in the game this week.
Whenever I think of Bo, there was a WWE wrestler that was Bo Dallas, and he said, I want you to Bo leave. And that's how I always think about Bo. And he would come out and he'd do the thumbs up. You got to Bo leave. Last year, Tim White might have been playing injured, was a game time decision. Chris, we got a lot of Tim White stance. Tim might be going to get that rest, shaking off next week. I want to talk Calgary here, but Hamilton, obviously you're the Ticats, you got the jersey, all that. Like, Toronto looked really good, right? We'll see Ottawa here over the weekend. Like, I don't know. Are the Ticats equipped here? I mean, you got Butler, you got a couple good targets here for Bo. Like, do they have enough to kind of make a run here?
I think offensively they have the playmakers to potentially go on a run here. And if Bo looks like he did this week, I think that they could have the quarterback play in order to compete with those teams. But I'm more concerned with the defense based on what I saw this week. I think that there's a lot of change that defense underwent this offseason. Obviously, the retirements of Simone Lawrence and Ted Laurent, their two longest tenured players. That's huge. But they also lost guys in the secondary, lost other guys in the linebacking core as well, Jameer Thurman. So they're starting a bunch of new guys out there, and they didn't have Jamal Peters, who was their big offseason signing from Toronto at corner in this game. So, and his replacement kind of got cooked in this game. So, we'll have to see how the defense looks when he's back in there. But I was not impressed by the Ticats defense whatsoever in this one. I thought they didn't really generate much pressure on Jake Maier in this game. And that's something you have to do in order to throw Maier off his game.
Calgary here on the other side, Jake Maier looking pretty good here. We talked a lot of the Jake Maier game, 40 of 45 completions, 115 yards or whatever the hell his stat line used to be here. A little bit more respectable, 252 on this. Playing good, moving there. Like I said, Dedrick Mills having a good day, all over the highlight reel for all of that stuff. What did you make of Calgary here, who – like, and I talked with Ryan Ballantyne, like, ahead of the season, like, they made the playoffs, but, like, is it enough to make the playoffs as a 6-win team and then get kicked? Like, I don't like that. It's like, well, that's fine. Like, we made the playoffs. Like, okay, we're everyone has a safe seat for the next season here. So, what did you make of Calgary?
Well, I thought Jake Maier looked like a brand new guy. This guy looked like he did his 2022 version of himself, not 2023. And I think that this is a guy before last season I had pegged as the second best quarterback in the CFL. I had that much confidence in him. And that is what we saw in this game. I thought that he was just incredibly efficient. And one thing that stood out to me, and this is same for Bo Levi Mitchell, was the mobility. I thought that Maier looks like he's in tremendous shape. He looks like he's moving around a lot. He's never going to be, a tremendous athlete or anything, but he's a guy that can, run some bootlegs now, and he made several throws rolling to his right or left. And I think that is a new element to this Calgary offense that we didn't see last year.
Yeah, foosball fan here who's a big UFL, excuse me, that pops up here. CFL quarterbacks got some good sets. Yeah, I mean, like I feel like we're getting back to this. We got into the CFL kind of in the pittance of following the COVID year and kind of all this stuff. Like you said, quarterback play looks good across the league thus far. I mean, it's 1 week of many, but we're getting into we're pushing the ball down the field. We're making movement. Like it felt like these games had a little bit of momentum where sometimes in the past it's like, all right, 2 and out. I felt like, gameplay felt a little more refreshed this year. Maybe it's just because I've been desensitized watching UFL stuff for the last, 10, 12 weeks. But like, if you're okay with that, I think this is good football as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is like I said, the best opening week of quarterback play that I've seen since the CFL returned in 2021.
And what's cool too, and we've gotten into a lot of like the UFL and like the attendance and the ratings and all that. Like, there's just so much history in the game here with the CFL, and like even just the and I'm so glad we did the Grey Cup rematch for week 1, and we didn't get that last year. And it wasn't till like week 18. It was whatever, right? Toronto was resting at that point. Like, it didn't mean anything. And I like that week 1, we're able to reflect, like, man, the last time these teams met and think about that, it was the winner and we had all this stuff and Cody, and then they come back out. Like, I thought that was really cool. We're doing good on time here. Anything else with this game? I agree with you. Jake Maier looked really well. Looked really good. Rene Paredes, obviously, kicking the ball fine with that. A lot of field goals in this one, but anything else to take away?
Well, I think for Calgary, one thing I wanted to point out was the returns of Clark Barnes and Jalen Philpott to the fold. Both those guys, in the case of Philpott, he missed all of last year with injury. He's a guy that they were really counting on to be, a star player, at least a starting Canadian player in that receiving core last year, and he missed the entire season. Barnes was, I believe he was still named their most outstanding rookie, despite only playing like half the season. And they both had very good games in this one. So maybe a nice little 1-2 Canadian punch there at receiver for Calgary. And I think that's huge with that Malik Henry injury that he suffered in the preseason.
Yeah, just a couple comments here. Chris, a great rematch with Quinn. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Like, it's the same with like last season where we like Bo never went back to Cal. Like, there was just really weird stuff last year, and I know that. Like, okay, then wait an extra 2 weeks to make the schedule. We can kind of figure this stuff out. And I know we're dealing with availability and all of that. And then here, Amaji, Clark Barnes taking this game to the next level. Exciting stuff there. Let's get to let's see if my tabs will open here. Let's start talking. I got to pull it up here. Let's talk about Edmonton, Saskatchewan here while I get that pulled up here. I thought Edmonton had it for a long time. Saskatchewan came back. What did you make of that one? And what did you make of McLeod Bethel-Thompson?
Yeah, so I was watching this game with my brother, and we were both pulling for the Elks. We were like, they've been through so much these last few years, and getting a win at home to start the season would be such a big deal for this team. And it looked like they had it, like you said, for the longest time. I thought that, the offense was moving the ball pretty well through 3 quarters of this game. And I think that, they clearly have some talent on that side of the ball. But this defense in the second half in particular looks just as bad as I expected them to be this year. I thought that, they just completely whiffed on a bunch of coverages late in this game. Trevor Harris made one particularly great throw where it was a pretty good coverage on the play to Sean Bain. But other than that, I thought that the Elks made a lot of mistakes defensively, and then ultimately they had a chance to win it at the end, or at least tie it up at the end. And McLeod Bethel-Thompson, that's where he turned the ball over twice. So I think otherwise it was a very good game for McLeod, but I think at the end you gotta come clutch and make the plays when it matters the most.
Yeah, I thought this game really came down to the wire. Was far more exciting than I think it had any right to be here in the last, because you think in there like the last 2 minutes, okay, this is kind of over. And then it really did. They had that last grasp going in. I know he threw the pick there. He had the dropped kind of fumble handoff earlier in the game with McLeod. I don't know. You'll never convince me that putting your time and energy behind Trey Ford wouldn't prove more sustainable in the long run. I don't know. I've dealt with this with the WWE for years, and okay, like we've dumped money behind Roman Reigns for 10 years, but if you had taken that same time and energy and split it up over 2 or 3 guys in the same time period, would you get all of those? Like, I don't know. I think I would rather see Trey Ford here. I mean, I don't know if Trey Ford wins the game at this point, but I think at least you're setting yourself up for more than like you said, if the Elks defense isn't doing enough right now, they're probably not in contention anyway. So then what are we doing paying McLeod Bethel-Thompson all this money?
Yeah, I think like I said on the kickoff show, I thought that, this was a very win now move by the Elks. And I think if it was a team in a different situation, say it was a brand new coaching staff coming in and, they saw what Trey Ford did last year, they very well may have ran with him as their starting quarterback. But I think the fact that Chris Jones and then that staff are under so much pressure to win this year, I think, it's kind of a desperation move, but I kind of get it from that perspective. And I think you saw some of the benefits of bringing in McLeod Bethel-Thompson earlier in this game. I thought that, he got the ball out quick, and that's kind of his trademark, get the ball out in like 3 or 4 seconds. And that's something that Trey Ford really struggles with. But I think that, in the long run, I absolutely agree with you that Trey Ford will be, he'll be a very good quarterback in this league. But I think, I don't think Edmonton's, staff and the management there has the benefit of waiting it out 5-6 weeks. So they lost the game anyway. I think their defense is just so damn bad that I don't have any faith that they're going to be able to scrape together many wins anyway. But I think that you actually did see some promise from McLeod Bethel-Thompson-led Elks offense.
And this might be above both of our pay grades at this point, but I'm just trying to figure out here, and we've talked about this, and I think it's well reported, like, the Trey Ford, Chris Jones, there's something off there, right? And if he wanted him to play wide receiver or transition to that, and he didn't want to do that, and I don't know if it's, the Elks now, and it was a community ownership, and now we're trying to find private ownership, and we're dealing with all of that. And therefore Chris Jones is kind of like the commander in chief of kind of everything, right? Where it's kind of I always look at the Rod Peterson, like Chris Jones, like, I'm kind of in control of all this. Like, I just don't know if you were in a different team where there was maybe more oversight, that it wasn't just Chris Jones's show. If maybe there would be a little bit more pushback where everyone's just like, okay, like this is what we're doing. I don't know. And like I said, this is kind of beyond what we have the capabilities of knowing, but I would love to really be a fly on the wall of that over the last season and a half and just kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, I think that, it's weird with the whole Trey Ford, Chris Jones thing, because this, at the end of the day, this guy did draft Trey Ford in the first round.
In the first round.
Yeah. Like he actually, clearly did believe in him.
He moved up to get him, right?
Yep. He clearly does believe in Trey Ford on some level. Maybe that's not as a quarterback. Maybe that's just, like I said, maybe it's just a result of the situation, the dire situation that the Elks are in. But I think at the end of the day, yes, there probably is something going on there. And Trey Ford, if I was him, I probably would have, felt rubbed the wrong way by what's transpired there the last couple of years.
It feels, like I've said, this feels very similar to the Ticats. It feels very similar to the New York Jets. Like, I don't think the Jets are an Aaron Rodgers away from winning anything. Like, they might, I don't know, right? And I'm not the football genius here, but and I don't think the Ticats are a Bo Levi away, and I don't think the Elks are a McCall Bethel Thompson away. So like, you're doing all that, you're spending all this money. I don't know. I understand being a win now, but you could still lose and not spend $500,000 on a quarterback and be in the same position you are today, losing. Who a lot of people thought the Saskatchewan Roughriders were going to be duty going into the season. So you lose to them at home. You're continuing kind of that whole thing, not playing particularly well there. Did you I saw we're tarping the things now, right? We're not selling the upper thing. That was a whole Commonwealth is just it's just a sad place to go right now.
Yeah, I agreed with the decision. I think that it just makes more financial sense for them to only sell in the lower bowl now, because they're just quite simply not filling enough seats in it. I mean, it still looked very empty despite it only being lower bowl empty. And like you said, just a sad state of things for Edmonton. And this is the sad thing, is that they used to be the flagship franchise, if you will, that term gets thrown around a lot, but they used to be the flagship franchise of this league in terms of leading the league in attendance each year, and just to see it go downhill each and every season, it's been rough to see.
In terms of Trevor Harris here, looking, he had a couple interceptions here, looked better than I thought, was still taking, a few sacks on that. AJ getting the one touchdown, really tight on that. How do you think Trevor looked? And then how did you think AJ looked? Because to me, that was kind of their biggest signing here going into the season.
Well, I thought AJ, he looked like he got a little nicked up on one play, if I recall correctly. So maybe he wasn't at 100% for the whole game. But, I mean, like I said, with Brady Oliveira, it's hard to tell with running backs and positional players in any one given week. I think that we'll have to see a bigger sample size to see how he pans out in Saskatchewan. But as for Trevor Harris, I think that even if you look back to last year, I thought Trevor Harris played really well for the Roughriders in those 5-6 games that he played for them. But the question for him is more so the health. I think that, like you said, he's older than you. And
thank you.
He's, yeah. As you like to point out. And I don't think he's, the most mobile quarterback. He's not going to avoid many hits. Maybe not. He'll be able to avoid some hits just by getting the ball out fast, which is his trademark. But I think at the end of the day, he's not going to be a guy that's going to be able to protect himself very much. And I do have a lot of questions about him making through an 18-game season. But if he's there for the 18 games, I think this team is going to be very solid. I think this is definitely going to be a playoff team this year, because Trevor Harris has proven to be a very efficient quarterback in this league. And I've always been a fan of his. It's unfortunate that he's never won the Grey Cup as a starter. He's came close, but I think at the end of the day, he's a guy that, he's going to raise the floor of his offense. And, you saw it in this game. I thought he really spread the ball around nicely. And clearly he has some great chemistry with Sean Bain.
We got some comments here, then we'll get to the last game. I got to get out at the top of the hour. I got to get down. We have the Mariners in town tonight. We'll be heading to all that. But we have some comments here. Maji, Elks still finding a way to lose. We went through that a lot last year. George here, Elks need to learn how to win. Got to play 60 minutes. Chris on that. Really collapsed here at the end. Why the Elks not use Ford like the Bomber uses Traveler? Because Ford's not a large man, right? Is that what is that your takeaway from that?
Yeah, and he's not, because you want a bigger quarterback usually running the short yardage. So he's not really an ideal fit for that either. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Ford, they'll do well to sit behind McLeod for a year. We get a lot of that, but to me, it's a little bit more of the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. with the Vikings thing, where like, it's not like the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing worked because Jordan Love was a rookie and you had years left of Aaron Rodgers, and then you were still able to see what you had with Jordan Love before you were ready to pay him. Where Ford next year, right, he's off his rookie deal. So you're either going to have to pay him, hoping that then that he's absorbed all this knowledge, or then you let him go. Or it's not the point is to learn what you know about the guy while he's still on the rookie deal versus waiting for that to expire. I mean, the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix thing, and we've tracked him with UW here, is insane because by the time you know anything with Kirk Cousins, like Penix is going to be you're going to have to pay up for that. And then we're talking here. We skipped some here. Harris looked very good, accurate, picked the defense apart. And Chris says, yeah, he's getting a little long in the tooth. Yeah, I mean, this might be the last kind of ride for Harris. But, hey, Corey Mace got his first win. Head coach looked really happy for that. Anything else with Skask before we get to the BC Lions here? Because I'm really curious your thoughts on that.
No, I don't think so. Let's move on.
All right, so I full disclosure, caught up on this game today. It was the UFL playoffs last night, so we had the Battlehawks here losing against the San Antonio Brahmas. Very excited to talk about that tomorrow. But tracking the score last night, I was tracking it on my phone and then went back and watched it. I'm like, oh, this is a runaway. I mean, this is BC in a runaway here. I mean, it was 20 points here in the first half. Really kind of fell apart. Vernon getting his ass beat. He's running into stuff. He's getting his ass beat. He's getting sacked. He's getting beat up. Like then Rick after the game, we need to be more protective about him. It's like, like Vernon was the one that was in the boot last season. Like I would hope you would be. What did you make of this? Because everyone had, I think it was the Lions by a wash, which is always kind of the curse of death when all the CFL.ca writers have it, the monopoly one way. But we talked about it off the top. We had comments. Cameron Dukes looked great, but I thought BC really kind of this. I know it's week one, but this felt like it was a big loss in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the thing with the BC Lions, I think that they kind of seem like the same team. They seem like, it's only one game, like you said, but they seem like they're the same team they've been in recent years. They did a lot of good things in this game. When they're on, they can fling the ball around the yard. They have a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and defensively, they can play very well at times as well. But I think what they really lack in is that presence, that physical presence in the running game, just very ineffective in this game. William Stanback, I was not a huge fan of that signing. I thought that, I know he has that connection with Vernon Adams Jr., but I think ultimately he hasn't shown much in the last couple of years. He looks like he's kind of on the back nine of his career. He didn't look very good in this game. I thought that, their offensive line really failed down the stretch in this game. On top of all the hits that Vernon was taking, just, running short yardage and, just doing a regular scramble. So I think that ultimately at the end, Toronto's defensive line was really taking BC's offensive line to school. And, all credit due to the Argos defensive line for that. But ultimately, I think BC's offensive line has to play better if they want to be a Grey Cup winning team this year.
Yeah, it was crazy to me. And I'm just looking here. I'm trying to figure out here. So I said this off the top there. She's not off the top. I said this on the pregame show. Like, I think I don't see the Lions in the Grey Cup. Like there is something about them. And I don't know if it is the coaching staff. I don't know if it's the we play inside. I don't know if it's the West Coast thing. I don't know what it is. There is something about them where they do not have, the Kraken had that as well. I don't know if it's a West Coast thing, but the Kraken have that thing where like, you're down 3-0. It's like they're losing the game. Like there's no fight back at all, right? And the Mariners, I lived through that as well. We were up 8-0 against the Royals on Friday. Lost the game.
Oh, damn.
And like there needs it's a lack of this killer instinct. And I see it with the Lions, and I agree with you. It's the same. We're running it back now. We've got Stam back. We pretty much the same receiving core, except Lucky Whitehead, right? We're kind of running that back again. I don't know if they've done enough to overgo, and I know Winnipeg's on the downslide, so that might be the only benefit for them. But I don't see them having done enough here. I agree with you to kind of overcome it. Where it's one thing in June, it's another thing in November. But I mean, we saw this last year, them losing at home late season games that they had no business losing.
Yeah, and it's going to be even more challenging for them to make it to the Grey Cup if they can't keep their quarterback healthy again. And I think, Vernon, he got banged up, like you said, last year, was in the walking boot, and he missed a couple of games, I do believe. And I don't think he's going to last very long if they have him running short yardage plays, on top of like all the times he likes to scramble himself. So, I mean, I think that was a very head scratching decision. They cut Dakota Prukop in the preseason, and that was a very interesting move because everybody immediately said, so Don Magala's not going to run short yardage. So who's going to do it? It turns out their plan was VA. And I think that at the end of the day, it's a stupid plan.
No, it's insane because I was looking at that because I'm like, again, I'm easing my way back into the CFL. And okay, so Delgado is the backup, right? But yeah, like you said, you're not. And I saw people calling for him, and I saw Farhan not like arguing, but like talking to people like, we don't trust Delgado. Like, yeah, Vernon cannot be the short yardage guy. Like Vernon is older. He's also more fragile. I mean, we've seen Vernon have injuries. Like it's a horrible plan. Like the problem with BC is always they cannot run the ball. Like it's always been the problem with them since they got rid of James Butler here. I agree with you. Stanback has not been great. He's coming off the injury. Like as you said, I know that Vernon helped mastermind that, bringing him in when they didn't get Oliveira. I think that was kind of their backup. But I've seen this. I've seen this every time. Like there's nothing about this that makes me feel any better. And then blowing a huge lead at home against Cameron Dukes, the backup. Toronto's had all of this offseason stuff. You think this is the time, put the dagger in, killer instinct, finish the bite, finish the battle. And oh no, we'll lose 27-35. That's fine. And then you got Rick Campbell, we don't want to reflect too much on I don't know. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, one correction, it was at BMO Field in this game, but
that's what I mean. Losing to at their home. That's what I meant. No, I do know it was But giving them that home victory. You come in there, let's take care of business.
Yeah, exactly. And especially
for the record, for as much woe as the Argonauts have, they did outdraw the Birmingham Stallions there for the CFL season opener. I know
that's impressive.
But there you go.
I love that.
Anyway, sorry, you continue. I'll cut you off.
No, I was saying especially when the Argos are going into the season with, a brand new starting quarterback, a guy that has 2 starts under his belt in the league. I expected that defense in particular to play a lot better in that game. But unfortunately they didn't, especially in the second half. And I think at the end of the day, the big matchup that caused a lot of problems for the BC Lions was their offensive line was not able to match up with that defensive line for Toronto, which is going to be scary once again this season. You think about what the guys that they have up there. They did lose some guys. They lost the 2 guys, Dwayne Hendricks and Brandon Barlow, to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, but they still have Faloa Romalade. They still have Sean Oakman, and they brought in Jake Serezna, and that is going to be a scary trio on the defensive line all year for the Argos.
Yeah, Jake was really good. Highlight worthy for some of that stuff. I don't know. I just like I said, you're playing against the backup and Chad and all this stuff. We're gonna get out of here soon. How good did Cameron Dukes look? 3-0. No interception, scrambling all over the field. Kadeem Carey, big signing for them. And it seems like because everyone was saying, Toronto's lost all these people. It felt like they shored up here where they needed to.
Yeah, they're just a damn good football team, and it hurts me to say it as a Ticats fan, but that team is just so well coached. They do a great job in replacing the players that they lose in free agency, because they've been gutted not just this year. I mean, this was the big exodus this year, but the last couple of years, because they've had a first-place team 3 years in a row. So I've just been super impressed by them. Ryan Dinwiddie, I think he is arguably the best coach in the CFL right now. And I think, he's really done a great job, especially with developing quarterbacks. You look at what he did with McLeod previously, and then obviously Chad Kelly last year, his first year as a starter, and then Dukes looks really good now. So I think Dukes, I think he looked really good in this game. He had the one mistake where I think he held the ball too long and then he got strip sacked, and it ended up as a touchdown for BC. But other than that, those mistakes are going to happen, and I think he looked great.
Yeah, we'll see here. I was looking at the comments on all this stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I think this was the thing. Last question, I guess, for me on this was we'll get out of here. Chad's coming back at some point. I don't know. I think Toronto's going to be fine in the interim. Oh, that was what I was going to say, was you basically echoed what Mike Mitchell said in our private chat, where the same thing about Dinwiddie. Like, every quarterback he's had has had the best, one of the best careers ever, under him, going back with McLeod and Chad and all that stuff. I think Toronto is a force here. Last comments on that, and then we'll get out of here. But I mean, they're number 2 in the, obviously we haven't seen the Red Blacks yet, but Toronto's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would put Montreal number 1, like I said, but I think Toronto is going to make it a race this year. I think they're still going to be a 12-win team. I think they're going to be, you see the talent is still obviously there. They're a very hard team to beat at home. I don't believe they lost once at home last year, other than the East Final. So that's going to be an incredibly hard place to play still. Defense still looks very good. Their offensive line, they brought back all 5 of their offensive line starters, and they still have some veterans in the receiving core as well. One addition I really like was Rashid Bailey from Winnipeg, very underrated receiver that kind of fills a veteran role there for Toronto. And I think, like I said, I think they're going to be a very good team this year.
All right, we're going to dump out today, guys. I appreciate it. We'll be back next. Like I said, no Friday episode this week. We'll be live for the UFL Championship. And then Jason and I will figure out when we are going to go live next week, because I'm flying back on Monday. So we'll figure out, but we'll have a recap sometime next week. We'll figure it out. I'll catch up on all the games, because we'll be going live for all of that stuff. But, it should be a good slate here. I like the Thursday games kind of easing into the weekend here we get during the summer. So that should be exciting for all of that stuff. Jason, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I think let's put this one to bed.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Go Mariners. And thanks a lot.